Hi, this is Roman, and today we are going over Unit 8 on conditional probability, Day 16. And our focus question is, how do we find the probability of events A and B when they are dependent and when they are independent? So for today's activities, I'm going to be focusing on slide 12, really thinking about how we can create visuals for conditional probability using the standard deck of cards, and also taking a look at activity 14, or slide 14, excuse me, and thinking of activities that we could use to aid students in understanding the topic of conditional probability. So the activities and routines that I'm going to present are going to be in Desmos, and I will share the link so you can copy and edit to your needs for your students. But you could use any platform. So the first activity that I have here is a graphic organizer. So as I press preview here, a lot of things, a lot of moving parts in conditional probability, right? So it might be nice for students to organize their thoughts using this graphic organizer, having everything very nicely organized for them so they could move into answering what the question is asking, whether it's the probability of A given B or the probability of A and B. So here I just used the table, and I think this would be very helpful for students as one strategy. And again, maybe you would take this and create a similar graphic organizer and go from there. We also, I would say, if you're using Desmos, the scientific calculator is really useful in these lessons as they are computing these probabilities. Just to add it, and if you did forget how to add it, you just click your name and click Enable Scientific Calculator. So my second routine or idea that I think would be a great recurring theme for conditional probability would be to create a visual for these probabilities. So students really get a sense of what's going on, and they're not just plugging in numbers and multiplying to get the answers. So here, let's take a look at what one sample might be for this visual. So let's say I'm going to try to create a visual for the probability of A given B. And B is the number cube landing or showing 4, and event A in this case is going to be the coin showing heads. So if the number cube already landed 4, I really only have two options for my coin. It's either going to be heads or tails. And this is saying that event B, or given event B, is already 4. Right? Here are my two options. I could have heads 4, or I could have tails 4. And I've created my sample space here, and I believe, what was this question? This is the question, is the probability of A, and A is landing heads. So here, right, what would my graphic be? My graphic would be circling heads and showing, well, this is 1/2 of the time. And now we have a good graphic to represent what's going on here. So that's one idea for this. Another idea would be a card sorting activity, right? And here we just have the different formulas that we might have learned for conditional probability, and we have students really making sense of the structure of these formulas. And we can ask them to explain their thinking as an extension, or use the connecting representations routine through new visions as an extension, and using these sentence stems like I saw, so I connected, or blank matches blank, are two great sentence stems that go along with this activity. So again, one recurring theme that I feel would be very valuable in this topic is creating visuals for students. So if the first event is the card being black, and the second event is the card being a king, and let me say that I am doing the probability of A given B. So let's write that down. The probability of A given B. Now, why is this so useful? We get this visual, right? B is the card being a king. So we can get students really to visually understand this idea that, well, out of the kings, how many of them are black? 2 out of 4, or 1/2. Might make sense to pick a different color to really highlight that part, right? And now we have this great visual to go along with this question. So that's one more idea, having them create the visual and then going from that concrete to an abstract understanding as we have questions that they might not be able to reason out, like a deck of cards where we're just given probabilities. And here's just one more sample of, I believe, the second question on one of the conditional probability lessons. So again, same idea here. And then as an extension, again, going back to connecting representations, here I have the probability of A given B, and I am noticing that I had one too many given symbols there. And here I would ask students, what connections do they see? Based on the graphic of how I highlighted all the kings for the example that was just gone over, and then I circled the ones that were black, compare that to the structure of substituting into the formula and seeing that the probability of A and B is the probability of A times the probability of B, and seeing what happens when we simplify here. And again, I'm noticing I have one too many given symbols. So that's one more idea that can be used here. And you could make multiple representations, or you could just ask them to make that connection. And I think it's very valuable to see the structure and have students make sense of the structure themselves. And then my last idea here, and this was on illustrative mathematics. This is from illustrative mathematics. If I take a look at this question and I take a look at B, how's the probability of choosing a second crayon dependent on the first crayon? Sketching out a tree diagram to give this one a visual, right? So I believe this one was 8 crayons, right? And I'm going to color coordinate using Desmos. 3 red, 2 blue, 1 black, 1 green, and I'm going to have to make yellow here, orange. So how might this be helpful, right? If I have a tree diagram and I am saying that the probability of A is selecting a blue crayon, well then as I redraw it from possibly selecting 1 blue and I continue my tree diagram here, right, I'm seeing that my probability is going to change. So when I draw out all my possibilities, if I already selected 1 blue, I have 1 less blue to select from, and I'm going from 2/8 to 1 out of 7 with that second opportunity. That's a great graphic. And again, another visual, which I think is a great recurring theme for this topic of what's happening. So these are a few strategies to go about conditional probability with a theme of creating visuals and a few ideas for routines that might be useful.